Today on Off the Grid, all your social media questions answered. And I can handle the truth, so ask me. I stole that from Jack Nicholson. Today, it's another round of From the People, where I'll answer any and all of your questions. Let's go to my Off the Grid command center, where my vigilant producer, Alex Logan, will start us off. But Alex, before I throw to you, I want people to know you throw these questions at me. I do this off the top of my head, so there may be questions I don't have an answer for, but I'm honest enough to tell you that. If I don't know the answer, you'll know that.
All right, hope you have a good answer for this one from Daniel in Paynesville, Ohio. Why do you think all of a sudden people give a damn about their civil liberties, government spying, shit like that? Where was this outrage when Bush implemented the Patriot Act?
Dan, you're exactly correct. Where was the outrage then? Well, I'll tell you where the outrage was. People were scared. The Bush administration caused one thing to happen, which they tried. They wanted to scare the hell out of you. They wanted you scared beyond belief that the next terrorist was hiding around the tree in your front yard. And they got the country to believe that, him and Cheney and all of them. And then what happened to our fogged up vision? We weren't listening to Ben Franklin. For those that will give up their liberty for security shall have and deserve neither. Because people need to understand clearly, freedom is security. The only way government can protect you is to lock you down. Take away your freedom, then they can protect you. And we seem to be willing to sacrifice that today. I'm not. I would rather battle the terrorists on a daily basis than have my freedom taken from me. George Bush said to us, they're attacking us because they're jealous of our freedom. So the solution was the Patriot Act, to take away our freedom, then they won't be jealous anymore and they won't attack us anymore. That's the scenario. I'm not buying. Daniel's absolutely correct. The outrage should have happened the moment they passed the Patriot Act, but we were all so scared in our shoes, we would have let them pass anything after 9/11.
From Daniel Roman on Facebook, how do we go about stopping the current governmental push towards a totalitarian state without a violent revolution, if possible?
Well, how you stop it is with a nonviolent revolution. You stop voting for Democrats and Republicans. That in itself is going to be like climbing Mount Everest. We have to abolish these two political parties, get rid of them, turn them into political action committees, whatever you want them to exist as. The first thing could happen locally, and it's so simple. It's this. Why do we put political parties on an election ballot? Why not just the name of the candidate? It's done for a reason, ladies and gentlemen. It's done so that if you're conservative, you don't have to know who the candidate is. You look for Republican. If you're liberal, again, you don't need to know the candidate. Look for Democrat. Let's remove those names and put only the candidate's name. Then it becomes inherent for us as voters to educate ourselves.
Here's a fantastic one from Cheryl Vaughn on Facebook. If the NSA is so powerful, why is it they cannot or do not annihilate electronic fraudulent behavior or identity and monetary theft? This would be a better use of their efforts and our taxpayers' money.
I agree with her on that. That would be a better use for the money, and I'll bet you they're not looking at any of that stuff. They're more interested in dealing with terrorism and putting us under observation because you and I are all potential terrorists. That's what they're saying to us. I think she's completely correct. Let's get them working where they're beneficial to us rather than working against us.
We have a few questions about religion from Jeremiah in Kingsport, Tennessee. What would it take for you to believe in God?
What would it take for me to believe in God? Not that much. I just like to see He exists. I've been here 62 years and He's never said a word to me, and I shouldn't say He, because how do you know God's a He? Wouldn't that be a shocker if God was a woman? Wow. That would really throw a wrench in the game, wouldn't it? I think it would take something as simple as, like George Carlin said, the sun. When I can physically see it and it's not part of my imagination or belief system, that's when I'll believe it, when I can see it and know it exists. It's not a belief then, or it's not my imagination.
From Jesse in my beautiful hometown of Dayton, Ohio, what's your opinion on tax-free statuses of churches considering how much control they have politically?
I call that religious welfare. We have a religious welfare state in America. I, as an atheist, am forced to pick up the property taxes of all the churches, because churches don't have to pay. If they don't pay taxes, then they should not have a voice in government. The only people that are players in the game are people that pay taxes, and churches do not. Churches are not contributing to the state. They're not paying taxes. I have to pick up the slack when they get in Minnesota, their roads plowed, their streets repaired. Me, the atheist, has to pay for it. I don't mind that. There's welfare all around, so I suppose a little religious welfare to go along with the other welfare might work fine. But the point of the matter is they should stay the hell out of politics unless you're paying taxes. I don't want to hear from you.
From Marcus in Chandler, Arizona. I know you're against an assault weapons ban and presumably a high magazine ban, but where do you stand on background checks?
The whole thing to the Second Amendment is simple. We're allowed to own weapons to protect ourselves, firearms. Assault weapons, all that is a fancy name and a weird-looking weapon to make people frightened from it. You cannot own an automatic weapon without a special license. I've had a gun safe for years, and I've never come home and found my guns disobeying. It requires an ounce of trigger pressure and a human being to make that tool work. And I heard the greatest thing the other day. Nancy Grace nailed Piers Morgan so good on gun control, I gotta quote her. It'll be a cold day in hell when we listen to you British about gun control, when you're the ones that caused us to have guns, when you were over in our country, coming into our homes and stealing our stuff. That's what the Brits did to us. That's why we okayed the right for us to bear arms. So how dare anyone from Britain talk to us about controlling guns when they're the ones that made us have all these guns in the first place?
From Darlene in New Hampshire, I disagree with you on only one issue, abolishing federal income tax in favor of a national sales tax. How would you fund Social Security income for the elderly and disabled?
I didn't say I'd get rid of Social Security. It's still there. Ta-da! I said I would replace the income tax with a national sales tax. I never said a word about doing anything to Social Security. So, ma'am, you just answered your own question. Nothing would be any different. You would just be getting the gross of your check. You'd still have Social Security deducted out of it. The government gets your money first, then you get your money. By going to a national sales tax, you would also put the government on a direct basis with the economy. It would be imperative for them to keep the economy good, so you'll keep buying stuff, so they'll keep getting their money.
Ryan Anderson on Twitter asks, with such an overpopulation problem, what is your view on the death penalty, and how would you change the current viewpoint?
I've never supported the death penalty because it's my belief very strongly that if you put one innocent person to death, then that's too many for the other 99 who deserved it. But on the flip side, I believe that when you get life in prison, that means you die there. We give life imprisonment, but then we offer parole after a few years, so it's not really life. I oppose the death penalty, but I do support life in prison being just that. You're in there for the rest of your life.
Mr. Rotten Treats 302 wants to know, would you wipe clean people's records that have pot charges if you were elected president and give them some sort of clemency?
Absolutely. I did it as governor. I sat on the board with the Chief Justice, Kathleen Blatz, and the Attorney General, Mike Hatch, and the three of us all thought alike, and we had the ability in Minnesota where if all three of us agreed, we could expunge records, wipe them clean. And I can't tell you how many times the three of us thought alike, and when somebody had a pot violation from 20 years ago, we wiped it clean. So my record on that is already there. You don't need to ask me that. I already would do it. I already have done it at the state of Minnesota level. I would simply do it at a national level.
Richard Burton on Twitter asks, would you open up a proper 9/11 commission as president?
Absolutely, because there's so many questions I have on 9/11. In fact, I'm glad Richard asked that question, because I'll tell you what I'm going to do, and here's the springboard right now for future shows. At least once a month, I'm going to pose a question about 9/11 that the government will not answer. Maybe you, the viewers, can educate all of us and give us those answers. In the United States today, you're not allowed to talk about 9/11. You're not allowed to discuss it. You're certainly not allowed to criticize it. I say bullshit to that. I have every right to ask questions about it. I have every right to criticize it. And I have every right I'm going to talk about it. So at least one day a month, I will pose a question for you people out there concerning 9/11, something that the 9/11 report did not address, and a question that hangs out there to this very day on learning the truth about what happened on that infamous day.
Martin Kemp on Twitter wants to know, what's your view on Israel with the Palestine conflict?
It's like when you raise children. This is the mentality. You have two children and they're fighting over the same toy. Well, how do you teach the children not to fight over the toy? You take the toy away. Then neither child has anything to fight over anymore, do they? Child psychology may be the only thing that could work in Israel and Palestine.
Mr. Polysyllabic on Twitter asks, how might you prove to skeptics that you are not just another asset of the mainstream media?
I am an asset to the mainstream media? How does he prove he's not a CIA infiltrator on my show, sending me a message like that? I'm an asset to the mainstream media? Are you kidding me? I'm the one that labeled them jackals when I was governor. I had it 10 times worse than Palin had it. Look at my record, look at what I'm doing, and if that doesn't convince you, then nothing could.
Here's our last one for this week. Francis Hensley on Facebook wants to know, Jesse, if you were to become president in 2016, what would you consider to become the most important accomplishment during your term?
I would start treating the American people as my friend as opposed to my foe. I think our government today treats us like we're the enemy. Jesse Ventura may not be the smartest guy on the planet, but at least when he tells us something, it'll be the truth, and it'll be from his heart, and it'll be doing it with his best interest in mind, and he won't be owned by political action committees, money, or anything like that. On that note, the chances of me becoming president become slim to none, because if you don't take the dirty money, it's pretty hard to succeed in that dirty racket. That's it for our show today. Keep writing and calling in with your questions. And remember, most of all, stay vigilant out there.